One way to say this is that within 3 to 5 years, we'll have what is called general intelligence, AGI, which can be defined as a system that is as smart as the smartest mathematician, physicist, artist, writer, thinker, politician. Theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free.
In this video, we'll be taking a look at all the statements from the top AI CEOs and giving you guys every statement that they've made about what's coming in 2026. So firstly, we're going to take a look at what Dario Amodei says.
Over winter break, as I was looking at where things were scheduled to scale within Anthropic and also what was happening outside Anthropic, I looked at it and I said, for coding, we're going to see very serious things by the end of 2025. And by the end of 2026, it might be, everything, close to the level of the best humans. And I think of all the things that I'm good at, right? I think of all the times when I wrote code and, I think of it as like this intellectual activity and boy, am I smart that I can do this. And, it's like a part of my identity that I'm like, good at this. And I get mad when others are better than I am. And then I'm like, oh my God, there are going to be these systems that, and even as the one who's building this, even as one of the ones who benefits most from it, there's still something a bit threatening about it.
Yeah.
I just think we need to acknowledge that. Like it's wrong not to tell people that is coming or to try to sugarcoat it.
Now, Dario Amodei also says that 2026 and 2027 are likely to get us to AGI.
So 2026, 2027 is when you effectively get to AGI across the board. And it's the threshold moment. Whoever's ahead then is ahead forever. Is that what you're saying?
Potentially. I mean, we don't know these things, but there's a risk of this. That's
happening at a particularly uncertain time geopolitically, but we'll get to that.
I've heard those same years, floated as no. I'm aware of how frightening this is.
If you extrapolate the curves that we've had so far, right? If you say, well, I don't know, we're starting to get to like PhD level, and last year we were at undergraduate level, and the year before we were at like the level of a high school student. Again, you can quibble with at what tasks and for what. We're still missing modalities, but those are being added, like computer use was added, like image-in was added, like image generation has been added. If you just kind of like, and this is totally unscientific, but if you just kind of like eyeball the rate at which these capabilities are increasing, it does make you think that we'll get there by 2026 or 2027. Again, lots of things could derail it. We could run out of data. We might not be able to scale clusters as much as we want. Like, maybe Taiwan gets blown up or something, and, then we can't produce as many GPUs as we want. So there are all kinds of things that could derail the whole process. So I don't fully believe the straight line extrapolation. But if you believe the straight line extrapolation, we'll get there in 2026 or 2027.
Now, if we take a look at Elon Musk, he made a recent prediction stating that it's quite likely we'll get to AGI by 2026.
Grok's coming to Tesla, so you'll be able to access Grok through your Tesla, and you'll just be able to ask it to do whatever you want. You could ask your car to go pick up a friend or anything. You can think of it, the car will be able to do it. Yeah, you'll be able to ask your Tesla to go pick up groceries, pretty much anything. Optimus is really going to be next level. You'll be able to skin Optimus in a white, pretty much with anything. So people on the internet have asked me to make catgirls real, and actually you can make catgirls real if you have a robot. You have a robot catgirl. Yeah, Optimus will be able to pick up the kids from school, and Optimus will be able to be school if you want. Be able to teach kids anything. Yeah, and it'll support any language too. I think AGI will be next year, probably. It's not next year. It's, let's say 2026 at the latest for AGI. At the latest. I hope it's nice to us. So one defines AGI as smarter than any human. I think we're less than 24 months away from that. Yeah, please be nice to us, AGI. Humanoid robots will usher in a level of abundance that was hard to imagine. There will be no shortage of goods and services.
Elon Musk spoke even more about the Tesla bots. He said that the company plans to build about 10,000 this year, stating that they're going to be working in Tesla factories by the year's end. Musk speaks even more about AGI, saying that it will likely happen within the next 1 to 2 years and that it will be much smarter than any human.
When things are changing rapidly, the ability to predict the future, I think, is becomes a lot harder because of the rate of change is so great. But I think some things are fairly obvious to predict, which is that we'll have AI or AGI that's at a level that it can really do almost any cognitive, I think really not almost, really any cognitive task. It's just a question of when. One could debate, is it, smarter than any human at the end of next year, or is it 2 years or 3 years? But it's not more than 5 years, that's for sure. I think it's probably end of next year before AI can do better than any individual human could do. But it's a much higher bar to say, well, is it smarter than human intelligence collectively? But if the rate of change continues, that's why I think probably 2029 or maybe 2030 is where digital intelligence will probably exceed all human intelligence combined.
Now, of course, it's time for Demis Hassabis. In one of his podcasts on YouTube, he actually says that AGI is likely about 3 to 5 years away.
When we're at the point where we have a model, an AI model that can do everything a human can do, at the level of a Nobel laureate, like the one sitting next to me, across many fields, can do anything a human can do remotely, can do tasks that take, minutes, hours, days, months. My guess is that we'll get that in 2026 or 2027.
Demis, do you agree with that? I think you thought this was a bit further away.
We don't disagree about too much. I think the timelines are a little bit longer. The way I would define AGI is a system that can exhibit all the cognitive capabilities humans can. And that's important because the human mind is the only example maybe that we know of in the universe that is a general intelligence. Of course, how to test that is the big question. The one I'm really looking for and why I think it's a little bit further out, maybe 50% chance of in 5 years' time, so maybe by the end of the decade, I think we don't have systems yet that could have invented general relativity when Einstein did with the information that he had available at the time. Or another example I give is, can you invent a game like Go, not just play a great move like Move 37 or build AlphaGo that can be the world champion? Could you actually invent a game that's as beautiful aesthetically and so on as Go is? So I think it's going to take a little bit longer to get that kind of capability.
Now, coming to Mark Zuckerberg, he actually expects AI to handle half of Meta's coding by 2026.
But the big one that we're focused on is building an AI and a machine learning engineer to advance the Llama development itself, right? Because our bet is sort of that in the next year, probably, maybe half the development is going to be done by AI as opposed to people, and then that will just kind of increase from there.
To me, the Sui agent is the sort of the first attempt. So the question for us is, in the next year, can we get, let's take a kernel optimization, right? Will we get to sort of something like that happens? I think it's more likely. Whether it comes up with a novel model architecture change, probably not. So the question is, which task?
Optimizations, security improvements, that type of stuff, I think seems like it's pretty high opportunity.
And the other thing for us is, to your point, our core business, in fact, Bill started the company as a tools company. And so to us, the interesting thing I think about now is maybe the way we should reconceptualize our tools and infrastructure, quite frankly, are the tools and the infrastructure for the agents to use. Because even the Sui agent needs a bunch of tools. And what shape should they be? What should their infrastructure, what should their sandboxes be? So a lot of what we're going to do is essentially evolve even what does the GitHub repo construct even look for the Sui agent?
It's a very interesting concept. And I tend to think that like every engineer is effectively going to end up being more of like a tech lead in the future that has sort of their own little army of engineering agents that they work with. But
Now, of course, it's time to talk about Eric Schmidt. Schmidt recently, he made several eye-opening statements on what he believes will happen next year in AI. Take a listen.
We believe as an industry that in the next 1 year, The vast majority of programmers will be replaced by AI programmers. We also believe that within 1 year, you will have graduate level mathematicians that are at the tippy top of graduate math programs. So that's 1 year, okay? What happens in 2 years? Well, I've just told you about reasoning, and I've told you about programming, and I've told you about math. Programming plus math are the basis of sort of our whole digital world. So the evidence and the claims from the research groups in OpenAI and Anthropic and so forth is that they're now somewhere around 10 or 20% of the code that they're developing in their research programs is being generated by the computer. That's called recursive self-improvement is the technical term. So what happens when this thing starts to scale? Well, a lot. One way to say this is that within 3 to 5 years, we'll have what is called general intelligence, AGI, which can be defined as a system that is as smart as the smartest mathematician, physicist, artist, writer, thinker, politician. I call this, by the way, the San Francisco consensus, because everyone who believes this is in San Francisco. It may be the water. What happens when every single one of us has the equivalent of the smartest human on every problem in our pocket? But the reason I want to make the point here is that in the next year or two, this foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it. It gets much more interesting after that. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. We call that superintelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. The San Francisco consensus is this occurs within 6 years, just based on scaling. This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free.
The next one here is Aidan Gomez, a British-Canadian computer scientist and entrepreneur known for his pioneering work in AI, especially natural language processing.
There's this second thing, which I think it'll come this year or next, which is continual learning or learning from experience. The status quo is that we build models, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars building them, and then they're frozen. And yeah, they're out there talking to people, doing things on behalf of people, but they're not learning. They're just static, and everyone talks to the same version. There will be breakthroughs coming soon, which unlock the ability to learn from experience. And you can imagine working with this model and asking it to do something, and it fails. It's fine. Interns fail. Failure is not a bad thing. But the thing about humans is that when you teach them how to do it properly, when you correct them, they remember that forever. They'll never make that same mistake again. And so they grow with you over time. That's what experience is. So giving that to the underlying technology will unlock dramatic lifts in terms of value for the enterprise. So we're excited to push that forward.